With new threats of terrorism emerging every day, we are working to keep you safe and asking, how secure is our airport? Tonight, in a 15 Finds Out investigation, we are getting answers, and you'll be surprised by what we found. Good evening. I'm Heather Herron.
And I'm Brett Thomas. During the day, as you'll see, it doesn't appear to be the case at night. 15 Finds Out investigator Alyssa Ivinson is exposing the problem and joins us with why it's important for you to know. Alyssa.
Well, this all started with a tip to us from a police officer. He's concerned there doesn't seem to be a real deterrent to stop someone from illegal activity at the airport in the middle of the night when no one is really around. So we wanted to see for ourselves. Since June, we've made several overnight trips to the terminal, and we went places you cannot go during the day. The typical sounds,
your attention please,
and sights of the Fort Wayne International Airport are much different in the middle of the night. And the rules during the day.
I have to have a ticket to be able to get up to the body scanner, right?
Right.
Are passengers during the day allowed to be back here behind the ticket counter?
Usually no.
We do have to leave?
Could you just step outside though?
Seem to be different at night too.
I could go all the way up to that. Are you aware that we were out here in the middle of the night for an hour? We roamed around.
No, nobody ever told me that, but that's okay.
The last commercial flight into the Fort Wayne Airport usually lands around midnight, and the ticket counters for the first flights in the morning don't open until 4 a.m. That leaves several hours where the terminal is open and practically empty.
We are a 24-hour airport. Our terminal building does stay open to help those who either come in late and they don't have a ride yet, they're waiting. We don't want to put them out on the street.
15 Finds Out went in at 2 a.m. For an hour, we roamed the airport. We could go behind the airline ticket counters up to all the TSA equipment. The security gate is behind the scanners. The cookie drawers in the visitor center were unlocked. Even some keys were within reach in the taxi booth. All the baggage claim conveyor belts did have the metal gates pulled down behind the flaps. The door up to the airport authority was open, but the main office door was locked. We did try to open the doors that were marked no trespassing, unauthorized persons will be prosecuted, and they were all locked as well. While we saw the cameras in the ceiling, we never saw a security guard, and no one stopped us to ask what we were doing.
The staircase to the airport authorities open.
We showed our trek through the terminal to Director of Airports, Scott Hinderman.
So is any of that concerning to you?
Not at all. I think it worked perfectly. You guys came and you walked around our public building. You did a very nice job. You got absolutely nowhere where you were not supposed to be. I'm pleased. I'm very pleased with what you guys were able to do and where you couldn't go. The areas that we had to protect, you were unable to get to. So from the footage that you showed me, our system's working excellent.
So it's not a concern that I could just walk up and push over security stuff?
That's the TSA. Anything that's related to the TSA, you would have to go visit with the TSA, or if you did something and the camera catches you, well, they would handle that. That's not the airport authority's equipment.
But what about like the ticket counter area, the computers there, the phones there?
There's not going to be a safety issue. You cannot get to the airfield. And if you did something wrong, we would have been notified through our access control system, and we would have took appropriate actions. If you want to go by the ticket counter or play with the airline's computers, those are the airline's computers, and they're not the airport's.
Hinderman explained the TSA and airlines lease space from the airport, similar to a store in a mall. While the airport authority is in charge of airport security, it's up to the TSA or airlines for how they want to secure their property.
The areas that we are supposed to be protecting to make sure we comply with regulations were protected. And I welcome you to come back. If that's what you wish to do, our building is open.
So we did, a few months later, this time with notes that said to call 15 Finds Out if found. A photographer not wearing any Wayne TV logos went in to place the post-its.
While Jake was inside the airport, I stayed out here in the parking lot, and at 1:22 a.m. I saw an SUV marked with police on the side drive right by on the Circle Drive in front of the airport, but inside, Jake never saw a police officer.
After Jake was finished, we shot video of the tarmac and saw the security officer out there. He even drove off with his lights on, but again, never talked to us.
We found several Post-its throughout the building. They were kind of hidden. We actually found them within an hour or so after you were there because we watched you put them throughout the building.
Why didn't you stop us while we were putting them around?
Well, you're doing your investigation and we're going to let you do it. You guys entered the building about 3 minutes after we had stepped out of the building. We drove in front of the airport terminal building. And then we sat out on the ramp in a squad car and watched you guys what you were doing. We also knew what you were doing, so we knew you weren't going to be a bad person doing something. But yes, we had you. We were following you throughout the terminal building.
So it'd be stuck up top there.
When we went back to check where all the notes were left, all 10 were gone.
Yep, no Post-it.
One of the Post-its was under the table where you get your carry-on items after you go through security. It was past the body scanners and metal detectors.
You're saying if somebody were to put something where our Post-it was in TSA, TSA would have found it before the passengers were coming through?
I'm saying that it is screened and scanned and all the areas are inspected prior to the operation of screening passengers.
Should the garage door be in front of the TSA security equipment overnight so nobody can even touch their equipment all night?
There's nothing that would violate security if you touch their equipment. They calibrate it every morning before they start doing it. So I don't believe that that is an issue. The TSA is very involved when we did the project of putting that screen security door in.
We reached out to the TSA and got a statement saying in part, while TSA equipment is accessible after hours, the area is patrolled by the Public Safety Division and monitored by CCTV. Anyone attempting to vandalize or damage our equipment would be caught. We have complete confidence in the safety and security of the Fort Wayne International Airport.
I think you gave them a very good penetration test.
Jeff Slotnick is president of the risk consultant firm Cetricon. He says while we may not always see the security sees us.
You're never really undetected. You know, there are plenty of airport physical security systems that are recording your every movement and watching exactly what it is that you do. With technology today, that information can even be communicated remotely to someone's iPad or a monitor in a remote location that you may not be aware of.
Hinderman wouldn't give any specifics about the airport security plan, but he did say the airport police officer makes rounds across the airfield and tarmac to not just the terminal building, and that rotation is always changing so no one can pick up a pattern.
Is the airport secure overnight?
I think the airport authority is extremely secure. We didn't test the system in the fact of trying to do anything illegal, but it's comforting to know that our technology actually worked. We got alerts that you were in the building, and we were able to follow things on camera where we could make sure that if you were a bad guy, we could actually take corrective action.
Now you can watch extended video of our overnight trips to the airport right now on Wayne.com. We do want to note FWA has passed both TSA and Federal Aviation Administration inspections with zero discrepancies every year for the last 3 years. Now, Brett and Heather, we also wanted to know, how does Fort Wayne compare to other airports? So we called 25 similar-sized airports all across the country. They're all here on the map. The ones in green stay open all night long, and 8 of them, the ones in red, close overnight. Now tomorrow we'll travel to some of those airports and show you the difference of those that close and the ones that stay open, see if they have the same access that we had here in Fort Wayne. So that'll be tomorrow at 6.
You know, even though the airport says that you're being watched, it doesn't seem like much of a deterrent.
And that's really the concern, that the security isn't as visible. It doesn't seem like you should be able to go behind the ticket counters or go through the body scanners, but the airport TSA, they're all okay with that. And again, we'll see if other airports have that similar access tomorrow.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Alyssa.
How safe are our airports? Last night, we showed you the results of our late-night investigation at Fort Wayne International. And tonight, we're taking this a step further. We're looking at airports across the country. Good evening, everyone. I'm Brett Thomas.
And I'm Heather Herron. When the commercial flights stop overnight, the terminal stays open and security is not as visible, which is why 15 Finds Out investigator Alyssa Ivinson went searching for the security.
That's right, and we were surprised that we could roam around the airport in the middle of the night and not see a security guard. So we wanted to see how that compares with other airports of similar size. So we called these 25 airports all across the country. They're all similar-sized airports, and 8 of them in red in this map do close overnight, but the 17 airports in green stay open, just like Fort Wayne.
Welcome to the Fort Wayne International Airport.
airports are known to be places of tight security.
We have 3 people who are law enforcement officers on the airfield 24 hours a day.
But sometimes that security is not so obvious.
And you can see where you think you see cameras, and do they really have a camera or is it just a bubble? You don't know. There are also cameras that you can't see.
In many smaller airports, like Fort Wayne's, there are no commercial flights in the middle of the night, but part of the empty terminal is still open for anyone to come in. 15 Finds Out roamed around for an hour through the TSA security equipment and behind the ticket counters without ever seeing a security guard.
So it's not concerning to you that somebody could just have access to all of that in the middle of the night?
It's more concerning to me that if we would be locking the building and people want to come out and we would be unwelcoming. If somebody wants to come into our building in the middle of the night, they can't get anywhere because we do have doors that are secure, or the ticket counters are secured. Once you get behind there, you can't go anywhere.
While we could go places we got kicked out of during the day,
Could you just step outside though?
15 Finds Out was not able to breach what's known as the sterile area. All the doors that should be locked by law were.
Everything that you did on your clip, we worked well. Our system protected the airfield.
On a second trip, we did see a police SUV drive by the terminal outside and flip on his lights on the tarmac. Director of Airports Scott Hinderman says the airport police officers make rounds on the entire airport grounds.
We have over 4,000 acres. In the middle of the night, I will tell you, our FBO, our fixed base operation, has more activity going on it than this building. So we have our security monitoring much more than just the terminal building.
Many other smaller airports also keep the terminal building open 24/7. 15 Finds Out called 25 similar-sized airports, and 17 have terminals open all night long. We sent TV stations in Roanoke, Virginia, Shreveport, Louisiana, and Green Bay, Wisconsin into their airports to see if they'd have the same access we do here. In all 3 overnight trips, the crews did not see a security officer and were not stopped from roaming the airport all alone. And when WFXR's reporter showed the Roanoke Airport our trip in Fort Wayne,
it's concerning to me for that airport. I think things would be probably a little bit different here. You're on camera pretty much everywhere. I would be really surprised if somebody would be able to come in here for more than a couple of minutes and not be noticed.
but the WFXR crews had already taken an overnight trip through their terminal and found a passenger sleeping inside, but were never confronted by security. The Roanoke Airport later said the TV crew was being watched on the security cameras. In Shreveport, airport police are also on duty 24/7, but not always in the terminal when it's empty overnight.
Traveling all of the property that the airport owns. The airport owns a lot of property that's not directly connected to this airport building property.
The KTAL cameraman was also able to walk around that airport without being stopped. Someone could easily walk behind ticket counters there, too.
So the ticket counters are leased by each individual airline, so that is airline space, not necessarily airport space. If they don't want something out in the open, they would be the ones to secure that, not us.
It was a similar story in Green Bay. The WFRV crew had access to the ticket counters, but the TSA scanners were behind a gate. At nearby Appleton, Wisconsin airport, though, that equipment was not locked away, just like in Fort Wayne.
If somebody wanted to come out and walk around, that's fine.
But what if someone comes in with illegal intentions?
If people want to do ill will, I don't think you can stop them. You can record it and capture them and do the appropriate law enforcement activities. But just because you lock a door doesn't mean you stop that activity.
15 Finds Out traveled to the South Bend Airport, which closes the main terminal overnight, but keeps a smaller adjacent bus terminal open.
There's bathroom facilities, there's drinking water available, there's chairs. If it's the wintertime and you got to get out of the cold, you can do that.
Executive Director of South Bend International Airport, Mike Daigle, says there's no one-size-fits-all for if airport terminals should close when commercial flights stop.
I've been at 5 or 6 different airports at this point, and each airport does it differently. Each community is different.
He also wasn't alarmed by our trip through Fort Wayne's terminal.
Nothing, I don't think you could do it well over 100 airports in the country to go through behind ticket counters, The things that I did notice is the doors that were supposed to be locked appeared to all be locked. I didn't see anything that was concerning.
In Evansville, the airport closes for a few hours overnight. The doors were locked when WEHT's photographer tried to walk in. 15 Finds Out traveled to Kalamazoo, Michigan, where the terminal also closes. The police officer opened the doors for us. Inside, as workers arrived, the ticket counters were once again accessible, but TSA equipment was gated off, and the police officer was making her rounds. Security consultant Jeff Slotnick.
When you look at the U.S. airport system as a whole, we've had very precious few attacks against U.S. airports, and the ones that have occurred have been very major airports.
Until October 6th, Asheville Regional Airport in North Carolina is one of the airports on our list that stays open all night. Michael Estes left a homemade bomb on the curb outside the airport terminal. Police found it around 7 a.m., but it had been sitting there undetected for 6 hours.
To have somebody in Asheville essentially drop a bomb off at 12:37 at night and nobody finds it until 7 o'clock the next morning. The thing was timed to go off at 6 o'clock, right when their first bank of flights is going out. Didn't happen. That was a great example of being lucky.
A scare that reminds airports to keep reviewing security policies.
These are things that, from a management team perspective, that we're constantly having discussions about. Even things as simple as our cleaning staff are trained to be able to observe that kind of stuff.
We are constantly making sure that we are refreshing our procedures, our protocols, how we patrol to make sure that we are in front of the bad guys as best we can.
While it may seem surprising to go behind ticket counters and through TSA security equipment in the middle of the night without anyone stopping us, the airport says it would be different if someone was actually breaking the law.
Does anything need to change? Does a security guard need to be more visible in those overnight hours?
Again, we have not had an incident that I know of, and I've been here for 10 years. We are changing our security access and our protocols all the time. There is nothing that's constant. We move them around so that we can't be patterned. So we have them inspect at periodic different times. We have them stationed here, stationed there. We do that on purpose so that we can't be anticipated.
Now, clearly Fort Wayne's airport is not alone in the access to airline and TSA property overnight. But most airports' answers were all talking about reactionary enforcement. The cameras will catch someone doing something wrong, but they don't really prevent someone from even trying. And we wanted to know what you think of all of this, and we have heard both ends of the spectrum since our first story yesterday. We put a poll up on Wayne.com and also one on Twitter. More than half of you said security should be more visible at the Fort Wayne airport. Around 20% of you don't think anything should change, though. And you can still join the conversation. Just use hashtag #AirportInsecurity on Twitter and Facebook.
Okay, a lot of revealing findings.
It is. It just doesn't seem like you should have access to that equipment. But again, you are on camera no matter what you're doing.
And you really can't get into those restricted areas that you talked about. So
correct. The airfield was secure.
Yeah.
It just seems weird that you can have access to the other stuff.
Yeah, it does, and I'm looking for a better explanation from the airports as to why they don't lock the doors,
well,
other than just inviting people in.
And that's up to the TSA and to the airlines to secure their equipment, because that's leased space, is what the airport says, and they want to be open for the passenger. They might have to be there super early or super late. That way they have somewhere to stay.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Alyssa.